Good evening, everybody. So nice to see you all. Welcome. My name is Mauri. This is Robert Doves. And together we organize Politics in the Pub every month. So it turns out, I actually don't know very much about the prison system whatsoever. Isn't it amazing? I trained as a sociologist, and I got tunnel vision on a particular institution, higher education and then health, which are just two institutions, but one of the ones which is, of course, the most consequential and significant for so many people's lives is the prison system. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that Rob and I have been organizing these events for 5 years now, can you believe it? And we've never directly addressed the prison system. There always seems to be other topics which push the prison system further down the line. But then, last year, just prior to Christmas, I received an email from Kimberley. So Kimberley is one of my old sociology students from way back in the day. I'm talking maybe like 8 years ago or so, a very long time ago. So it turns out that even though I, as a sociologist, wasn't focusing on the prison system, the other sociologist in the room was, and I'm so grateful for that. Kimberley does a lot of good work dealing with the justice system, and she was extremely patient. She said, could we please deal with this? It's very important to me. And I said, if you're willing to wait, I'll get back to you. And Christmas came and went, New Year's came and went, and months passed by, and finally I got time, and it was clear, and I contacted Kimber, and I said, so, thank you very much for waiting. Do you remember, are you willing to do this? And she said, yes, let's do it. So usually, it's either me or Rob who organizes the events. I just want to have a round of applause for Kimber for being the brain behind this one. I just wanted to be careful not to take too much credit, given your amazing work here, so thank you. Now, as I've already said, I don't know very much about the prison system, so I won't take up too much of your time, other than to give the basic stats that I found online after repeated returns to the ABS and other sites. It's pretty astounding. So, first of all, 100% of people who respond to surveys like responding to surveys. Keep that in mind. But 78% of people who responded say that they know nothing at all about the prison system. Not a little bit, but nothing. Right? They can only guess, or probably mistake it with the United States or with the United Kingdom if best. Nearly half of people coming out of our prisons return within 2 years, which if you're looking at the success of a prison, aka a correctional facility, I'd say that's an indictment, if anything. Indigenous Australians in Western Australia are represented 70% higher than the national average and 30% higher than the Northern Territory. In other words, Western Australia is the laggard, overrepresented. From 2022, males were up 3%, women were up 6%, but of course, the sociologists would say adjust for the mean. What does that mean? So what it means is from 2012, the prison population has gone from just north of 30K to north of 40K. So it's increased by 10,000 people in 10 years, which is incredible. So evidently, not only is recidivism getting worse, but the more people coming out will be going back in by a power of about 5,000. It's quite astounding. That's all the fun facts that I have for you tonight. I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to let the speakers, the experts, share with you their knowledge. Kimberley Wilde. Kimberley is a sociologist. She has worked across Western Australia's community sector and has volunteered with several grassroots human rights and environmental campaigns. So I looked at her online presence because she didn't specify which organisation she's worked with, so listen to this. She's been a project officer for Tenancy WA and for the Street Law Centre, and has worked for the WA network of alcohol and other drug dependencies, and now she's working for the Justice Reform Initiative. This is all extremely hard work, right? It's not the kind of work that people usually stick with for very long. It takes a very certain, particular kind of person with a lot of care and commitment to stick with this kind of work and do it, and I think we can all really admire that. The impacts of imprisonment have been woven into the tapestry of Kimberley's family and her life, and I think this influences her advocacy for the whole system reform, with the goal being to reduce incarceration and build safer, more inclusive communities. So thank you to Kimberley for her work, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. My name is Kimberley. Before I begin, I also want to respectfully acknowledge that we're meeting on Wajak Noongar country. That's Reconciliation Week this week, and we're speaking about a topic that disproportionately impacts Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So thanks for coming, thank you for your interest in public discourse, and thank you for your interest in this topic. It's one that's really important to me, obviously. Like Christian said, around Australia, 78% of people self-identify as knowing nothing about the prison system. I'm going to assume that most people in this room are in that 78%, and the rest of us might know sort of like a little bit to a lot about the prison system. So to start, I'll give an overview of the prison population in Australia in recent decades and build a picture of who is in prison in Western Australia. In Australia. Because I'm a sociologist, I will talk about social determinants of incarceration. I'm not going to speak about victims of crime at this point, except to say that we really need to bust out of that binary of victim versus perpetrator, because that fails to recognise. Am I holding this wrong?
Make sure you don't point that toward there.
Okay. That binary of victim versus perpetrator fails to recognise that most people in prison are victims of crime as well, and also fails to recognise that prison sort of tends to spectacularly fail, keep on turning that way, victims as well. I'm really happy to speak about that later tonight in the discussion though. So first, the number of people in prison. I'm going to talk about adults. Again, happy to talk about kids later, but right now I'm talking about adults. So in 1983, there was a daily average, is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Yeah, okay. So in 1983, there was a daily average of just under 10,000 people in prison in Australia. In 2023, that number was 41,929. So prison population growth has massively outstripped national population growth. So from 83 to 2023, the adult prison population grew by 319%, and in that same period, the whole national population of adults and children grew by about 71%. So the way we talk about numbers of people in prison usually is in incarceration rate, which is the number per 100,000 adults. The Australian imprisonment rate was 66 per 100 for 100,000 adults in 1985 and 206 in 2023. It's around double or more than double of OECD equivalent countries like Canada, France, Germany. The US is an outlier, but even the US, since reaching a high in 2008, has actually reversed their trend. Their incarceration rate is decreasing. It still eclipses ours, but it's decreasing in response to a bipartisan commitment to reduce the numbers of people who they send to prison. Conversely, in Australia, our imprisonment rate in recent years, between 2003 and 2018, was the third fastest growing in the OECD, behind Turkey and Colombia. The current WA imprisonment rate, we do it better than the rest of the country, is 304. The Russian imprisonment rate is 300. So right now, WA men's prison estate is over capacity. It's over 100%, and that means overcrowded. Almost 2/3 of people in prison in WA have been there before, and more than a third of people have returned to prison within 2 years of being released. We'll talk about WA here. And about a third of people are on remand. So that means they haven't been convicted, they haven't been sentenced, they're awaiting trial, they were denied bail. You should definitely ask me about remand later. So who do we incarcerate in Australia? Spoiler alert, it's mostly marginalised and disadvantaged people. Poverty is a huge driver. Australian researchers have recently identified 8 key social determinants of incarceration. So these are in no sort of order of prevalence, except that the first one I think is the most important, is being Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. And this is not inherent. It's a result of colonisation, systemic racism, over-policing, marginalisation over generations. Aboriginal people are criminalised Australia-wide. The proportion of adult Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander adults in prison is 32%. In WA, it's nearly 43%. That's the highest First Nations incarceration rate in the country, and highest in the world, according to some, depending on which measures you're looking at. In WA, an Aboriginal adult is 18 times more likely than a non-Aboriginal adult to be sent to prison. Having been in foster care, so there's a huge overlap between kids in care and prison, and that's in the youth justice and adult prisons. The stats, the available data and the available stats are sort of incomplete and contradict one another, but we're looking at about more than half of kids in contact with the juvenile justice system for both community corrections and in detention, having also had child protection interventions. Again, really, really disproportionate representation of Aboriginal children in that group, which shouldn't have to tell you. Receiving a poor school education. So 66% of people entering prison in Australia in 2022 reported having an education level of Year 10 or below, and that's compared with 16% of the general population. And around 80% of people in Western Australian prisons have a literacy level either equivalent or below that of an 11-year-old child. Having contact with, early contact with police. So contact with police is criminogenic. When you have contact with police, you're more likely to have ongoing contact with police, and you're more likely to have contact with other tiers of the criminal legal system. The earlier that contact is with police, the more likely you are to be incarcerated. Having unsupported mental health and or cognitive disabilities. So half of people entering prison in Australia in 2022 reported a diagnosed mental health condition, including alcohol and other drug dependence. There's a study, landmark study that was done in Banksia Hill in 2018, and the Department of Justice will never let anything like that happen again. But 9 out of 10 children there were identified as having a severe neurocognitive disability, and about 3 in 10, a bit over 3 in 10, with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Problematic alcohol and other drug use. So again, in 2022, 73% of people entering prison reported recent illicit drug use, so illicit drug use within the previous 12 months. Not all of that will be problematic, but that sort of indicates the high prevalence of alcohol and other drug use. Experiencing homelessness or housing instability. So about a third of people who are incarcerated experience homelessness in the 4 weeks before going to prison, and about half expect to be homeless on release. That is getting worse with the current housing availability and affordability crisis around Australia. And coming from or living in a disadvantaged location. So a lot of these social determinants, they intersect and they entrench each other, and so that's kind of how we end up with these disadvantaged locations that ultimately end up being over-policed and criminalised. So there's a systemic failure to address these social drivers of incarceration, and there's no sort of single, the prison system kind of becomes the drip tray that people fall into when other systems fail. And it's a really expensive drip tray. There was more than $6 billion spent on prisons around Australia last year, including capital costs, and there's $8.65 million in WA. And there's not one kind of single thing that we can just go, there you go, that'll fix the incarceration rate. There's, most of the solutions lie outside of the criminal justice system. They're in those systems like health, housing, education, mental health, health as well, child protection. There's a compelling evidence base, there's multiple proven, cost-effective, like long-term solutions to address the problem of over-incarceration. And this kind of it's at all points of contact with the criminal legal system, from that primary prevention, that's those other systems, early intervention, policing, diversion, alternative court systems. There's so many opportunities to, during prison, in prison programs, pre and post release support, like Mervyn and Lorraine offer, and Aboriginal programs must be prioritised because it's impacting First Nations people more. So it's really important for community well-being and fiscally responsible government that we look at reducing the incarceration rate in Australia, and really look forward to having a chat about that a bit later.
Thank you so much, Kimber. There was a lot there. I was taking notes, but there was a lot. Very informative, thank you. Just from a point of contact with police, this is something which it really illustrates how easy it is to live in a bubble. It's I've been living in central Fremantle for a very long time. The only time that I ever get pulled over and breathalyzed is when I go out to my friends who live in the sticks. It's very reliable that when I go out to visit my friends who live in the sticks, I'm going to get breathalyzed. If I'm just around Fremantle, I'm effectively invisible. Not too long ago, I had parked my car out front of Mission Australia out in the sticks to give some training there, and the cops came and effectively inspected my car on the street, which, if that were to happen in Fremantle, it would seem like a made-up story. Effectively, it's so improbable. So contact with police corresponds so strongly with where you live, how you present, all of these different factors, which is very easy to be oblivious to. So I'm really grateful that you brought this to mind, especially in South Fremantle. So, especially. Yeah. So thank you. Our next speaker is Lorraine Pryo. Lorraine founded a Voice of Hope in early 2022 to support incarcerated and formerly incarcerated Aboriginal women, along with the cultural programs to help connect people to their culture, to identity, and their families of origin. A Voice of Hope tackles recidivism and domestic violence. It provides counselling services and parental support. It offers educational programs, access to amenities and housing. It does a lot. I was going through your website, and you do a lot. You do a lot. Lorraine's work is informed by her own experiences with incarceration and the challenges surrounding the system. Once Lorraine encountered the system, she decided she never wants that again, and she wants to help other people who are being confronted with it too. Among her many accomplishments, these efforts saw her recognised as WA's 2023 NAIDOC Community Person of the Year. So please welcome Lorraine Pryo.
Kaya Wanju Nijanunga Buja. Hello and welcome to this beautiful country that we're meeting on today. My name is Lorraine Pryo and I'm a Noongar York from Perth, with ancestry ties down in Balladong on my grandmother's side, and Nanakala Buja, which is Wagen Way, and Narrabeen on my grandfather's side. So, Kimberley, where are you? You just explained my life. Being, living in poverty as a child, being exposed to domestic violence, having a child at the age of 16, then me being the victim, being the person being affected by domestic violence. But, life has been challenging, and I've never sugarcoated my past and what's happened in my past. I didn't know what was going on in my life. I didn't know why our life was like this. When I'd see my non-Indigenous friends and I'd see their pretty homes and the food on the table, the fridge is full, I'm thinking, why don't we live like that? We were living from day to day, week to week, and we always had a big mob in the home, of our families. And that was the best love that we could have was having our people, our family, that was richer than anything. You know, we didn't need money. But life went on for me, and I ended up having a lot of traumas happen in my life. And one day I had like a nervous breakdown, and I got onto the alcohol, but it wasn't numbing the pain that I was feeling. And then I was introduced to my next best friend, that would be my best friend for the next 10 years, and that was crystal meth. So I had an addiction to meth. I was living through a very, very abusive domestic violence life, and I had to give my children. I was a mother to 4, but I ended up, I was a mother to 5. I lost one when he was 8 months old. So all these traumas that was going on through my life, never been shown or guided how to, regulate your emotions or how to deal with grief. I ended up going on a roller coaster, and my life was just up and down, around and round. And I ended up meeting these guys that were so broken, that I ended up becoming addicted to meth so that I could just numb my pain. And then racking up charges, getting a criminal record. Ended up being incarcerated from 2003 to 2010, in and out. Going into prison, we never get rehabilitated in prison. We don't get the programs that we need in prison. I was looking for support in prison, but nothing. I came out just as broken. My last sentence was from 2008 to 2010. I did 16 months straight. And that was the last time that I would ever let the government benefit from my struggles, because that's what was happening. I came out, I stayed away from family because I had to, because all the toxic environment that they were still living in with the drugs, the domestic violence and poverty. I had to get myself strong, and eventually I did, but I had to do that with my elders. I had to connect back to my elders to find out what was going on in my life. Why was I living this lifestyle? Why was I walking this path in life? Then they educated me about stolen generation. All this trauma that I was carrying was called intergenerational trauma. So everything that impacted my mum, my grandmother, all came back to colonisation. Colonisation disrupted my culture, disrupted my family. My mother, my grandmother were never given the love that they should have been given from their parents. They were taken away from their parents as babies. So all this stuff that goes on in our life, there's nothing in the prison system to help us address any of these issues. There's not even no awareness of this in the prison system, because it's all pushed under the carpet. Our people are the highest statistics of incarceration. Our women are now the highest percentage of being incarcerated. It's only about 60% of our women are incarcerated. How do you think our kids feel without having their mothers? That ripple effect just keeps going down. So they're paying $350, about $350 a day to keep us in there, which works out to be $127,000, $130,000 a year. Us taxpayers are all paying that to keep these people in prison, to keep us in prison. Why don't we put that money towards healing our people so that we can lower that percentage of people going into the prison system? When I went to prison, there was only 2 prisons, Bandyup and Bronia, but now there's 4 for our women. I actually went into Banksia the other day for the first time to mentor the little girls in there, voluntary, because I want to see change happen in their life. It's up to us Aboriginal people now to fix what was fucked in the first place. It's us Aboriginal people that have to lead these programs to fix our people because we know what's going on inside. We aren't benefiting from our struggles. The justice system is, because they're building more prisons. They're dehumanising our people in there. You know, the mental health issues in there. The drug addiction, the drugs are getting taken in there. We're getting put at the back. Suicides are happening in these prisons. How can someone commit suicide in a prison? Where's the duty of care in there? There is none. Especially when a little boy, we had our first child do that in the prison system not so long ago. How would you feel? You've got to put yourself in our shoes. We don't want you to feel sorry for us. We just want you to walk beside us. How would you feel if your son done that? You know, our people we're broken. We're very broken. The system's not broken. The system never was broken. The system's built the way that it should be built. And that's to keep us oppressed, keep us disempowered, keep us disconnected. But you know what? It's people like me and Merv now that are doing 360s and turning it around because we want to help our people on this healing journey. I've now created my own organisation called Voice of Hope Aboriginal Corporation. I'm self-funded at the moment, so I've only been going for 2 years, but I need to help my women in a holistic manner because I want my women to get their children back. I want my women to be empowered. I want my women to know their culture because then our kids will know it. I want to stop intergenerational trauma. You know, I want to be able to walk beside you. My father's white and my mother's Aboriginal, so I'm blended, you know. So at the end of the day, I just want everybody to be united and to help support what we're doing out in the community because we need to make a change, and Merv and I are the change makers in our community, and we just want to lower the statistics. It's tiring what we do. It's very tiring and exhausting. Prison is not the answer. Prison is the answer to certain offences, but majority of them, people need healing. People need healing now, and it's come to our attention that that's what it is. You know, we've only just been brought up with the stolen generation, understanding our history. It's about truth telling, and so learn a little bit about our history. Take the time out to know our history. We take drugs to numb the pain. But don't forget, we never brought the drugs in here. We didn't make the alcohol either. We are the ones that choose to take them though. Because we're so hurt inside, we don't know how to regulate our emotions and do all that sort of stuff. But we want to change that. We want to make a difference in this world for our babies, our grannies. Prison will never rehabilitate anybody. It never does and it never will. It's just creating more chaos, especially in that little Banksia Hill. So thank you all for coming and listening to my story, and have a lovely night.
Our final speaker for the evening, well actually you're all going to be speakers after the break, aren't you? You're all going to weigh in. Fantastic, it's not just about the speakers, it's about everybody here. Our final speaker for the first half of the evening is Mervyn Eades. So, Mervyn is the founder and CEO of Kaya Aboriginal Corporation. He developed it to respond to the high rates of illiteracy, lack of educational qualifications, and joblessness among former inmates. His efforts are informed by first-hand experience. He was in and out of juvenile detention from prison from 13 years old up until his early 30s. Since then, his efforts to assist former inmates have seen him recognised with the 2016 Eddie Marble Award for Social Justice at the National Indigenous Human Rights Awards. And I'll say, everybody that I've contacted in the lead up to this event has been fantastic, but I was nervous when I contacted you because I had been watching the videos on YouTube. I probably spent an hour watching your videos on YouTube, and I was nervous, and when I called up, you were so amicable and you said yes immediately, so you have my sincere gratitude now for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. I'd just like to acknowledge where I stand and where I speak and where we meet tonight. Belonging to the Wadja people of the Noongar Nation. This is where we are, and it's their traditional grounds. Acknowledge past, present and emerging elders and leaders of our community. Incarceration. I speak from a lived lens, lived experience, walked, lived and breathed it, along with many of my people. And when I say my people, a lot of non-Indigenous and multicultural are in that system as well with us today. And my people, we were born into it. We were born into the incarceration. If you go back in the early settlement, you'd see that our people were chained from the Kimberleys, the goldfields, the Yamaki country up in the northwest, Jordan Way, Albany. They were brought in chains to here, this very place here, Fremantle. Brought here, then taken out to Rottnest. The only Aboriginal prison, purpose-built prison for Aboriginal people was Rottnest Prison, the first of its kind and the only one in Australia. This is the backyard of it. But to my people, Rottnest is a sacred place, very sacred place. Once upon a time, my old people used to walk there before the water levels were up. And that's out watching up there, all the way out there. But incarceration, I've always said it. My people was born into it, and it's the truth. When you walk into the prison system, in the juvenile prison space here in Western Australia, I call it the backwaters of Western Australia, like Alabama, so there's a deep south in America. What's going on here with my people at the moment? Our children are incarcerated at 80%. 80%, our women at 65%, our men at 50% of a population less than 3%. It is damning, and it is sad, and it's tragic, and like Lorraine and Kimberley touched on, the generational trauma of colonisation, yes, and to suppress and oppress our people. We've always been suppressed and oppressed from the word go here in Western Australia and all across our country, I suppose. Incarceration inside the prison system. A lot of people just see what they read and watch in the movies and that. When I walk in there, and I walk back in there today, and as some of us do, like Lorraine, it's black. You're looking to see if you can see a white fella in the units. It's just black. Every unit is just black, and all our young people, our kids, and in Bandy-up and the women's prisons, it's all the mums, some nanas. In Acacia prison, I see a grandfather, his son, and his grandson all doing time together. 3 generations in the one place at the same time, and poverty is the main driver. My people are the poorest people, the most disadvantaged, but the most vulnerable. Very vulnerable and very disadvantaged. I set up a program. I got out, the last time I was in was 2002. I got out on the 22nd of July 2002, I remember that day. 6 months later, my baby brother hung himself, 18 years old, in the very prison I've just walked out of. He's been in and out of juvenile detention, in and out of homes, state care, all that, and he died in the very prison I'd left. Background of me, my mum grew up in Sister Kate's. Sister Kate's, she was a baby when she was taken away, and us, me and my brothers and sisters, a lot of us went into state care as well, because Mum didn't know how to look after us, because she didn't know how to show us love, because she was never showing no love in the missions that she had grown up in. She was there from a baby till 13, then she ran away and hit the streets and that, and like a lot of our mob do. But I listened to what Lorraine said. It is a journey, and we want all to walk with us. And some of my best friends from the system are non-Indigenous brothers and sisters, but they also come from poverty. That's something that I could relate to. A lot of the non-Indigenous brothers and sisters that are in the system, a lot of them are poor. We're not rich people that go out and do crimes because we've got lots of money in the bank. We've got zero in the bank. No of our old people leaving anything for us. We've been left with nothing. We're born into the poverty and that, and that's what I'd seen in there. And the sadness and the mental health and in the prison system today, there's units, 4 units full of people with mental health. I went into Acacia and I was sitting there, I was talking to some of the family, because they're all my family, all the boys, a lot of them. And I said, what's them fellas walking around over there for? This is 20 years after I'd been in there myself. I didn't see mental health that much in the prisons 20 years ago, but today it is rife. I said, what are those fellas there? They looked a bit funny. And he said, that's the mental health unit. The 4 units, 60-something prisoners in 1 unit, segregated on their own, that suffer mental health, undiagnosed, untreated, just stuck in, put in the prison system and to rot away and to be medicated to the tilt, just as a control mechanism, just to control them in there. They just give them all this medicine. And I remember back in 1999, when I just got a 6-year sentence, I told the nurse that I wasn't doing it too good and I wasn't sleeping very well. They give me this stuff they call Largacnol, and for the first 3 months of my prison sentence, I don't remember a day. I was bouncing off the walls, going to visits, just sitting with my head to one side, dribbling. That's the way they controlled us in there. And as far as rehabilitation in the prison systems, there is none. There is none. They can gloss it all up however they want, but it's all lies. Majority of it is lies. No decent programs to get your people ticketed up and certified tickets and all that sort of stuff. None of that exists in the system. I created Nullamiah in the beginning, back in the early days, 10 years ago, and then Kaiwanju 2.5 years ago. It's a prison program. It was initially a prison program 10 years ago for brothers and sisters coming out of the prison to get them ticketed up in the construction industry to help them get into work. And it worked, and then I started Kaiwanju 2.5 years ago, and I started it as a business, because anything government funds, they got a very, very tight string on it, and our black spend is not like everyone else's spend. We've got a different spend system, and when the families are battling to bury each other and that, it's money. It doesn't mean nothing to us. You know what I mean? We'll help the families bury their loved ones when they can't bury them, because that's how poor our people are. Our people are dying out here, and we can't even afford funerals. A lot of our mob can't even afford funerals and that. Today I do the Kaiwanju program, and I open it up to black, white and brown, I don't care, for all the brothers and sisters, all the people unemployed, and all the people unemployed, the brothers and sisters coming out of the prison. I've always got a soft spot for them, because I know they need more help than anyone. And I don't turn anyone away because they're on drugs, they're homeless, or whatever issues going on. Everyone deserves opportunity, and that's the way I see it. And I don't turn anyone away from our program and our door. Just invite them all in there, because people need people. People need people, and people need people to care for one another and love each other and help each other. And especially the brothers and sisters from the prison system, black, white and brown, they all need help. I have a little brother I brought along tonight. My little brother Ian, not the one who died. The one who died was 1 year, was younger than him. Ian's 44 years old. He's done how many years in? 32 years jail. His last 3 sentences has been 10 years, 6 years and 8 years for stealing. Going into a shop and helping himself, then that turned into a robbery, as they called it. But that's been his last 3 sentences. 26 years. 26 years of his life, then comes out. I picked him up at a case. I never heard from him for 8 years because he switches off. And I know that because I used to be quite similar. You leave the outside world where it is, you've got no control over it. It's there, but it's not there. You're living in a world where you're controlled. He come out to nothing. Nothing. And a lot of these programs out here, all the do-gooders that's in the spend area, government funds them because they got glossy funding applications and they got the best funding writers. But you know, people like Lorraine with the Hope program and myself, we struggle, but we know we do it for the best intentions of our people, and that's where the biggest gap is in the community. The spend is massive, yes, but where it's going is a no-no. People just jumping in for the dollar, paying their mortgages off, and got 100 employees in a little office, in their big offices and that. You know, nothing hardly hits the ground where it should be hitting. Or me, I've got 3 people working with me, and that's all we need. That's all we need. And Lorraine has it, just you count them on one hand with her, not less than one hand. But yeah, the money's spent in the wrong places. The money's not spent where it should be spent and how it should be spent. But the best driver for justice right across the board is from the lived experience. I've said it nationally, every conference I've ever gone to. We deliver services to us because we've lived it and we've breathed it, and there's no barriers between us and the brothers and sisters from the system, because what they're thinking and what they're coming out with, we already know, because we've been there and you know we know what they need. And housing is number 1, employment, health, it goes down the line like that. Mental health, that's rife throughout our community, and black and white communities, because in that unit I speak of in Acacia prison, there was black and white brothers and sisters, brothers in there, and same with the girls in the girls' prisons. They have mental health units in the prisons. A lot of them people should be in Greylands, Bentley. They should be in lock wards and you know treated and diagnosed and treated and helped. But no, they chuck them in a prison and yeah, their minds wander. And that's where a lot of suicides and that come from, because a lot of mental health is in the prison system. And I talk to the prison officers out here, and when I run into them and that, the older ones, and they just said it's just rife, Mervyn. It's rife. They send them to us, and I don't blame the system, the prison. It's not the prison, it's the governments, and it's the commissioners, and all these people that don't actually go into the prisons, and some of them need to spend a week there, locked in a cell and that, to understand it. A lot of them are the criminals, as we know. But to fully understand it, you've got to actually live it, and to understand it and know it. No worries. Thank you.